Greetings, everybody. I just want to do kind of a short impromptu video here about my experiences I've had when comparing using the dual T16000M's and also using the T16000M with the TWCS throttle combination. Now, back in October, I had ordered the TWCS throttle, but I did not get it until December. There was quite the back order on it, a lot of demand for this particular controller. I finally received the controller. I've been spending several months now playing with it and kind of come to some conclusions. And I think if you're looking at this particular throttle, you might be interested in hearing how it will apply to Star Citizen and what I feel would be the best option between these two, since their price is about the same getting both of them. So looking at the situation, let's start with the TWCS throttle. Of course, it is a very good throttle. Nice slide on it. Lots of hat switches. You've got basically 3 hat switches off to use on your thumb, and you've got a really nice analog strafing stick that you have around the back. And of course, it has these paddles on the front, which you can use for either things like if you want to put roll on there, or if you want to do what like I did, is I put strafe forward, strafe back on those. But there's a lot of customization. There's a lot of buttons, and for me, as far as the strafing capabilities, the TWCS is probably the best throttle you're going to find out there with solid, very accurate strafing abilities. It's so accurate you can easily land in combat mode and it drifts straight down and keep very fine control. Most throttles have, for the analog axis used for strafing, it's digital, and you end up with the 0 and 1, so basically you're full speed or no speed, and this is really nice. Now, of course, it works really well for other games like Elite Dangerous and other standard flight games. With Elite Dangerous, of course, using the T16000M and the TWCS throttle combination, you can play the game pretty much completely keyboard free. It has a map setting already in Elite Dangerous that lets you run every button in there completely through, and you can just keep your hands completely off the keyboard. So for those of you with a setup that's a little bit less convenient, you can just move the keyboard completely out of the way for that. Now, looking at the overall effectiveness between these two, I think it's going to kind of come down to a couple factors. Now, for starters, if you don't have a setup already, if you don't already have a HOTAS setup or a dual stick setup at all, and you're looking for an investment, and you play other flight games, I would probably recommend getting the TWCS throttle with the T16000M combination, because it would have a nice universal application for any of the games that you're playing. But if you're almost exclusively Star Citizen, then I'm really going to have to recommend that you go along the route of the dual T16000M's. The reason for this is that while the TWCS throttle is really great, the dual T16000M's offer a much more refined and finer control of strafing that you can set up with that, because the range of motion you have on the dual sticks as far as strafing goes is by far superior. And also, if you're a HOTAS user, hand on mouse and stick, I would also make the recommendation as well just to get the T16000 for your offhand. Now, of course, with this setup, I set up all the strafing functions, forward, back, left, right, up, down, to the 6-axis you have on the joystick. And also the default throttle I set up on the slider. So what this will let you do is, for those longer flights or for those ones where you're not engaged in combat, you use the slider on the base, and basically you're able to go ahead and, essentially speaking, it's kind of cruise control. But when you see battle on the horizon, drop that main throttle to 0 and use the stick itself as like a HOTAS. You just move it, push it all the way forward. You can pull it all the way back for reverse. And the great thing about this is that since it's a joystick, it centers to 0. So when you take your hands off the stick, it stops. So you can have a really nice equilibrium. When you try to do like a forward and backwards on a default slide, say on a HOTAS or the TWCS, there's no real indicator for where middle is. So if you're trying to set up something like that, a lot of times you'll kind of end up going forward, and you try to stop the ship, you end up going backwards. And so as far as the stick goes, it's really better for this kind of operation. Now, if you do play Star Citizen and you own mostly large ships, and they're coming down the line, some of them are still not out, but let's say Freelancer and larger, then I believe that the TWCS would probably be just as effective. But if you have fighters in that mix, go with the dual sticks. Every single time, I think this is going to come out to be the better option. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to give you my thoughts on that real quick. I know I've a little late on the review on this, and I'm still a little sick, as you can probably tell by my voice. But I wanted to give you my thoughts on it, and I do think that overall, the best option for just Star Citizen is the dual T16000M's. But as I said, if you play other flight games out there and you want a nice universal setup, you really can't go wrong with a T16000M TWCS throttle combination. Alright guys, that's all I wanted to say, and I will catch you next time.